Hey there, Scoobies. The episode starts up exactly where it left off from Welcome to the Hellmouth. It may be a small thing to thank it for, but it's nice not to have a haphazard previously on, or the first part of the scene replayed like a fade out or a cutaway, like many other shows.
Previously on Lost.
Previously on 24.
What happened to me?
Previously on Smallville.
Previously on the 100.
Luke is hurt by the cross given to Buffy by Angel. It plays nicely as both a symbol of his faith and protective nature, even though we haven't seen it yet. Buffy saves Willow and Xander, but it's too late to save Jess, and then we return to the library. Giles' explanation of the world deepens the lore of the show and gives us a foundation for the Monster of the Week premise and how vampires came to be.
The books tell that the last demon to leave this reality fed off a human, mixed their blood. He was a human form possessed, infected by the demon's soul. He bit another, and so they walked the earth.
Jesse is brought to the Master as an offering. In some ways, this scene has aged badly from a continuity perspective, mainly due to further backstory showing the lineage of Slayers to be well known.
So where have you two been?
May I tell?
No need to be humble.
My little sprite just killed himself a Slayer.
Coming back to this makes it strange that Darla would act like she didn't know what a Slayer was.
Master, forgive me. We had more offerings, but there was trouble. A girl.
In the positives column, Mark Metcalf's campy performance is wonderful. The entire scene is shot in a yellow hue. Yellow is the colour most associated with deities in many religions, and as we saw from the last episode, Luke was seen praying before the blood pool where the Master rises. When the scene cuts to Giles bringing the same level of camp, Buffy mocks him. This is an early reference to the self-awareness that fans have come to know and love the show for.
He loves doing this part.
All right. The Slayer hunts vampires. Buffy is a Slayer. Don't tell anyone.
Using Jesse as bait is another example of subverting expectations. It indicates that they will keep him alive, and we believe that Buffy will save him. Xander's ride-or-die attitude shows a lot of heart and courage.
Plan, we saddle up, right?
Xander is often portrayed as the weak, nerdy kid that's bullied by the jocks, but in this moment he shows a lot of bravery beyond his own ability. Mr. Flutie stops Buffy leaving school without the need for consequences, and in some ways I'm going to miss him. Angel drops in on Buffy's investigation and immediately starts negging.
I knew you'd figure out this entryway sooner or later. Actually, I thought it was gonna be a little sooner.
It's too early in the show's life to start connecting all the continuity, but in my headcanon, Angel's line,
They really don't like me dropping in,
could be him thinking back to his days as Angelus.
And you live in the sewers, do you? I could never live in a rat-infested stinkhole. I'll be honest, you really couldn't with that face, no, could you? I'm not gonna get a bat nose like that, now am I?
Why not?
they really don't like me.
As I mentioned in my guide to Welcome to the Hellmouth, I really don't like his character in these early episodes. He was an unfinished thought that then gets rounded out later. We, the viewer, don't know this yet, or we're not supposed to, but he's a vampire and could probably be a great help against the Master. Instead...
Xander, what are you doing here?
Back at school, Cordelia is gossiping about Buffy and Willow gets some clever revenge.
Finally, the nightmare ends! Okay, so how do we save it?
Deliver.
This is a little passive-aggressive and maybe a bit too much for someone so meek and mild.
Well, look at me. I'm all fuzzy.
Buffy and Xander run into Jesse and the trap is sprung, along with the subversion. When they return, Buffy gives the bad news regarding Jesse's fate, and Xander takes a stance.
I don't like vampires.
As we will later see, Xander is often the forefront of the Hate Buffy's Boyfriends Club, mainly due to envy, but I think partly on account of what they are. It's easy to forget that in this first interaction with vampires, it led to his friend's death. Realising the Master's plan, they head to the Bronze to stop the harvest. The following scene exemplifies the superficial nature of teens in general.
Senior boys are the only way to go. And guys from our grade, forget about it. They're children, you know?
What I find interesting about Cordy's conversation about boys with cars, her disgust of Jesse, and then subsequent submission to him.
What are you doing?
Shut up.
Well, just one dance.
Is that it's still seen today. You often hear the complaint, why can't I find a nice guy? But as we can see, it doesn't do it for her. Hell, Cordy's so into bad boys, she is literally turned onto one without a soul. Equally, despite the lore of the show telling us,
You listen to me. Jesse is dead.
Jesse still desires Cordy, so in essence, he's still the same person, just a little higher on the food chain. The harvest begins, and Luke is about to devour Cordy when Buffy interrupts. In my Cordy video, I talk about how she is a mirror to Buffy, acting as the version of her before she became a Slayer. It's fitting then that it's Cordy that she saves in this moment. Buffy defeats Luke, using brains over brawn, the Master remains trapped, and we get the first of many of Buffy's don't mess with me poses. Giles sums up the next 7 years, and the episode ends with a quip that summarises the feel that they're going for. Although cheap and dated by today's standards, many of the elements that made the show are sprinkled into the two-part opener. You can clearly see Whedon's writing in its infancy stages. Some of the dialogue is clunky, and they aren't set in the world light story-wise. But in of itself, this is life-mimicking art. The vampire slaying is an allegory for maturing, and as we start the journey with Buffy, so too are we starting the journey with the cast and crew, who continue to grow and develop over the course of the show.
The Earth is doomed.